Hi, welcome to another video on creating dynamic teams. In my last video, I shared with you the 8 roles in every dynamic organization. I also said that each role is best filled by someone with a certain aptitude for the role. But where did this aptitude come from? Now, we've known for some time that this collection of characteristics and traits that we call personality are driven by 4 psychological functions. They're usually known as sensing, feeling, thinking, and intuiting. But what exactly are these, and how do they combine to create such a diversity of people? Now, this is a question that we've been trying to answer for over 100 years. These 4 functions were first identified by Carl Jung, the famous psychotherapist. But it's only since the development of high-powered brain scanning devices that we've really managed to understand what they are. So let's begin with sensing. See, sensing is your gateway to the external environment. Everything you see, hear, feel, smell, or taste is captured by your brain. But not everything is brought to your conscious attention. In essence, what you actually get is just a sense of what your external environment is like. Your mind takes all the raw data about your external environment and puts it into context. But where does this context come from? As we go through life, we build up our own personal map of how the world works. Everybody has a different life experience. So obviously, everybody's map is slightly different, but there's enough commonality so that we can all agree with what we're experiencing, at least most of the time. We create a common language, and in accordance with our culture, or the culture you grew up in, and by culture I mean it's culture in its widest sense here, we develop our values and beliefs about how the world works. Now, some of these values and beliefs will have been created through direct experience, and some from being told how things work by someone we trust and respect. And because we all like to be right, as we experience new situations and events, we extract from them the parts that fit with our map of the world. We do this using our universal modeling system. Most of the time, when external data doesn't quite match with our preconceptions, we just delete, distort, or generalize the data to make it fit. And we do this most of the time without any conscious thought. By doing so, we reinforce our values and beliefs of what to expect from the world around us. And it's from these values and beliefs that we generate a context for what we sense in the external environment. This is where feeling comes in. First off, feeling is not emotions. Feeling can create emotions, which are picked up by sensing, but this time it's sensing of our inner sensations, not the external environment. Feeling is responsible for pre-selecting the appropriate preconceptions for the environment you find yourself in. These become the models and maps which get compared with the external context derived by the sensing function. What feeling does is compare what is out there with what you're expecting to be out there. It connects your inner preconceptions with your outer world experience. It then compares the two and decides how it feels about them. So at the simplest level, feeling is just deciding, is this good or is this bad? It has at hand a repertoire of actions it can take depending upon the result. This connection is at the root of the fight or flight response, phobias, routine tasks such as driving a car, and even walking down the street. A simple example is when you put your hand onto a surface that you're not expecting to be hot. Feeling connects and compares the external data to what was expected. It decides this is not what was expected and selects the appropriate action, which is to pull your hand away. Now, this is a reaction, and the internal process is no different to the reaction someone has when they experience the trigger to a phobia. It is bypassing thinking and just taking action. This is also what happens when top athletes are in flow. In sport, it's referred to as muscle memory. It's as if the muscles just know what to do without the athlete having to think about it. In top sports, sometimes thinking should just get in the way. At a more everyday level, this function is also responsible for letting you do many of your day-to-day tasks without too much thought. These actions are a result of unconscious conditioning, not conscious reasoning. You just know what you need to do. In order to support those actions, it also sets the body into an appropriate physical and emotional state. Now, these are the emotions that we talk about as feelings, but these feelings are not the same as the feeling psychological function. And this has created a lot of confusion for some people. Once again, it's easy to see in our fight or flight response example. The physiological response triggered by the fight or flight happens whether it's needed or not. Now, I go into this in greater depth in my book, but for now, just know that feeling is connecting the outside world to internally stored actions. So what about thinking then? Well, thinking comes into play when feeling can find no appropriate actions to deal with the current situation. What thinking has to do is take different actions and blend or merge them into new appropriate actions, if it can. A lot of this thinking is happening at the unconscious level. Now, this is not the same as your inner dialogue or thoughts. What thinking is primed to do is to generate possible actions that will allow you to take control of the situation. And it does this even if feeling has already found a suitable action. Thinking also looks at the results of any actions. It evaluates them for their outcome and then reconfirms them as suitable or modifies to make them better. These actions will then become available for the feeling function. What we actually get are options offered up by feeling and thinking. Now, I'm sure you've had occasions when you need to make a decision but didn't know whether you should go with your head or your heart. Now, this phrase is just an allegorical reference to the options being offered by thinking or feeling. So how do you decide? Well, that's the purpose of the intuition function. The term intuition is also one that has become distorted when we use it to describe our fourth psychological function. When we normally talk about intuition, we mean knowing what to do, but maybe not knowing why, we just know. Now, if you follow my discussion about feeling and thinking, you will see that it's simply selecting the best course of action based on the options being offered to it. Because these actions may be deeply programmed into our psyche, we may no longer remember why it is that we choose that action, other than it just works. More correctly, the function should be called willing, as in what will I do? And while willing is responsible for choosing direction in which to act, I don't believe that it's responsible for actually implementing the chosen action. See, that part is still shrouded in mystery, but it will become clearer with the advances in neuroscience. You know, as a coach, I know that people can get clear in their head about what they need to do, agree what actions they need to take, have a good feeling about doing it, and still not take any action in the right direction. See, quite often these four functions are shown as opposites, but they're not. They actually cross over, like in this diagram here. And that's important for us, because at the end of each function lies a specific attitude or aptitude. Which one will apply to you will depend on the relative development of each of the four functions. Some people are more tuned to their senses. Some are more connected to their feelings. Others like to think for themselves, while some just want others to do the thinking for them. And I'm sure you've met people that are very purposeful and others that just want to be told what to do. Each of these aptitudes, or neural profiles as I like to call them, maps onto one of the 8 business roles that I covered in my last video. So we can go from this map of the neural profiles to this map of the 8 roles by understanding your combination of the 4 functions relative to each other. And as I said in my last video, these 8 roles also map onto the 8 wealth dynamics and talent dynamic profiles as shown by the talent dynamic square. Now, that'll be enough for most people. They will just go and take a profile assessment and get themselves on the right path to flow, productivity, and wealth. But there is a deeper layer. To understand that, we need to clear up the myth of being either an introvert or an extrovert. And that will be the subject of my next video. So until then, bye for now.